In a world where success is often measured by the cars we drive and the clothes we wear, sometimes the most powerful lessons come from the most unexpected places. Comment where you're watching from today, as we share a story that proves why you should never judge a book by its cover, or in this case, a legend by his car. It was a typical summer evening in Chicago, the kind where the humidity hangs heavy in the air and the sunset paints the sky in shades of amber and purple. At a modest gas station on the outskirts of the city, where the glow of fluorescent lights cast long shadows across the cracked concrete, an ordinary moment was about to become extraordinary. The year was 1984, just months after a young Michael Jordan had signed with the Chicago Bulls. Despite his promising rookie contract, MJ wasn't one to flaunt his wealth. Not yet, anyway. He pulled up to pump number 3 in his 1976 Mercedes, a car that, while reliable, showed its age through subtle rust spots and faded paint. It wasn't the kind of vehicle you'd expect a rising NBA star to drive, but Michael had always been different. He believed in substance over flash, in letting his game do the talking. The gas station was busier than usual that evening, filled with the kind of people who judge success by the shine of your rims and the year on your license plate. Among them was a group of teenagers, their own cars polished to perfection, stereos thumping with the latest hits. They were the type who had everything handed to them on a silver platter, fancy cars bought by wealthy parents, designer clothes, and attitudes bigger than their bank accounts. As Michael stepped out of his car, his 6 feet 6 inches frame unfolding from the driver's seat, he wore simple clothes. A plain white t-shirt, faded jeans, and a pair of Nike sneakers. Nothing about his appearance screamed future legend. He was just another customer, filling up his tank after a long day of training, his mind probably still on the court where he'd been practicing his jump shot for hours. The leader of the teenage group, a boy named Tommy, couldn't resist the opportunity to boost his ego at someone else's expense. His eyes locked onto Michael's Mercedes, and a smirk spread across his face. Here was someone he thought he could impress his friends by mocking, someone whose worn-down car made him an easy target for their amusement. But what Tommy didn't know was that he wasn't just about to mock any ordinary person. He was about to learn a lesson from someone who would become the greatest basketball player of all time. Someone who had already faced more challenges and overcome more obstacles than these teenagers could imagine. Someone who understood that true greatness isn't about what you drive or wear, it's about who you are and what you're willing to work for. As Tommy nudged his friends and pointed at the Mercedes, the gas station's fluorescent lights flickered overhead, as if setting the stage for what was about to unfold. The air grew thick with tension, and other customers began to take notice of the scene developing before them. Some pretended not to watch, while others openly stared, sensing that something remarkable was about to happen. Michael remained focused on the task at hand, calmly inserting his credit card and selecting his fuel grade. His movements were deliberate and graceful, carrying the same quiet confidence he showed on the court. He didn't need to prove anything to anyone. His work ethic and dedication spoke volumes more than any car could. The whispers and snickers from Tommy's group grew louder, their voices carrying across the forecourt like a gathering storm. Other customers shifted uncomfortably, recognizing the disrespect but unsure whether to intervene. The gas station attendant watched from behind his security glass, his expression a mixture of concern and curiosity. Little did these teenagers know that their target was someone who had been cut from his high school basketball team, only to become its star player through sheer determination. Someone who had turned every no into motivation and every setback into a comeback. Someone who was already showing signs of the greatness that would later make him a household name. The summer evening air crackled with anticipation as Tommy, emboldened by his friends' encouraging laughs, decided to take his mockery to the next level. He was about to learn that sometimes the most valuable lessons come from the most humbling moments, and that true character isn't measured by the car you drive, but by how you treat others when you think they have nothing to offer you. As the gas pump clicked steadily, counting up the gallons, time seemed to slow down. The regular customers, the passing traffic, the distant sound of city life, all of it faded into the background. The stage was set for a moment that would teach these teenagers a lesson they'd never forget, delivered by a man who would soon become known worldwide for his extraordinary achievements both on and off the court. The security cameras silently recorded everything, their red lights blinking steadily in the growing dusk. They would capture what was about to become a story passed down through generations in Chicago, a tale about respect, humility, and the danger of judging others based on appearances. A story that would remind us all that greatness often walks among us unnoticed, choosing substance over show and character over costly possessions. What happened next would not only change Tommy's perspective forever but would also become a testament to Michael Jordan's character long before he became a global icon. It would show that even in the face of disrespect, true champions maintain their dignity, and that sometimes the most powerful responses come not from anger or revenge, but from wisdom and grace. The air was charged with potential energy, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. The other customers at the gas station had stopped what they were doing, sensing that they were about to witness something significant. Some had their hands in their pockets, fingering their phones, ready to capture whatever was about to unfold. Others simply watched, holding their breath, as the distance between Tommy and his target grew smaller with each confident step the teenager took. Michael continued his task, seemingly oblivious to the drama building around him, but those who looked closely might have noticed the slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. It was the same smile he would later become famous for, the one that appeared just before he proved someone wrong on the basketball court. A smile that said he knew something his opponents didn't. The evening was about to become unforgettable, not because of any display of wealth or status, but because of a lesson in humility that would echo through the years. A lesson about looking beyond the surface, about treating everyone with respect, and about the quiet dignity of those who let their actions speak louder than their possessions. As the sun dipped lower on the horizon, casting long shadows across the gas station forecourt, the stage was set for a moment of truth. A moment that would remind us all that sometimes the most valuable lessons come from the most unexpected teachers, and that wisdom often arrives in the humblest of packages. Tommy sauntered across the gas station forecourt, his designer sneakers scraping against the concrete with each deliberate step. His friends trailed behind him like a pack of hyenas, their laughter echoing off the metal pillars supporting the station's fluorescent-lit canopy. The teenager's confidence was fueled by the brand-new Corvette his father had given him for his 16th birthday just last week, a car that cost more than some people made in a year. The gas station's regular customers continued their routines, but their eyes were drawn to the unfolding scene like moths to a flame. The elderly man in the beat-up pickup truck at pump number 5 shook his head slowly, remembering a time when young people showed more respect. A mother hurriedly ushered her children into their minivan, sensing the tension in the air. The gas station attendant's finger hovered over the emergency button, just in case. Michael Jordan continued to fuel his Mercedes, his large hands steady on the pump handle. His eyes remained forward, but there was a slight tension in his shoulders that suggested he was acutely aware of his surroundings. Years of basketball had taught him to sense movement around him, to anticipate what was coming before it arrived. This situation was no different from reading an opponent on the court. It was all about timing and patience. Tommy stopped a few feet from Michael's car, close enough to be confrontational but far enough to maintain what he thought was a safe distance. His voice carried across the forecourt, loud enough for everyone to hear, dripping with the kind of arrogance that only comes from youth and privilege. "Hey man, I think you're lost. The junkyard's on the other side of town." The other teenagers burst into exaggerated laughter, their voices echoing off the gas station's metal roof. One of them pulled out his phone, ready to record what he thought would be an entertaining confrontation. The summer evening air grew thicker with tension as other customers pretended to mind their own business while watching the scene unfold from the corners of their eyes. Michael's response was silence, the kind of silence that speaks volumes. He continued about his business with the same deliberate focus he brought to every free throw, every practice session, every game. His composure was that of someone who had nothing to prove, who understood that true strength lies not in responding to every provocation, but in choosing your moments. Frustrated by the lack of response, Tommy pressed on, his voice growing louder. "Seriously, dude, my dad's mechanic could probably give you a good deal on scrapping this thing. Might even get enough to put a down payment on something from this century." His friends snickered, emboldened by their leader's mockery. The gas pump clicked, signaling that the tank was full. Michael replaced the nozzle with careful precision, his movements unhurried and purposeful. His silence was starting to unnerve Tommy, whose confidence began to waver slightly. There was something about the tall man's demeanor that didn't quite fit the narrative Tommy had constructed in his mind. A gentle breeze swept through the gas station, carrying with it the faint sound of a basketball game from a nearby playground. The rhythmic bounce of the ball against concrete seemed to punctuate the tension in the air. Michael turned slowly, his full height becoming apparent as he straightened up. Tommy's smirk faltered for a moment as he realized just how tall the man before him was. The station's overhead lights cast Michael's shadow long across the concrete, stretching past Tommy and his friends like a silent reminder of the physical presence they were dealing with. But it wasn't just Michael's height that commanded attention, it was the quiet confidence in his stance, the kind that comes from knowing exactly who you are and what you're capable of. Other customers had stopped pretending to mind their own business. They watched openly now, sensing that something significant was about to happen. The gas station attendant had stepped out from behind his security glass, recognition slowly dawning on his face as he got a better look at the tall man being harassed by the teenagers. Tommy's friends had begun to shift uncomfortably, picking up on subtle cues their leader was too committed to his performance to notice. The way Michael's hands rested easily at his sides, the slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth, the absolute lack of fear or uncertainty in his posture, all of it suggested that they had severely miscalculated the situation. A car horn honked in the distance, making Tommy jump slightly. His bravado was beginning to crack under the weight of Michael's continued silence. The teenager's next words came out slightly less confident, more questioning than mocking. "What's the matter? Can't afford anything better than this old Mercedes." Michael finally moved, reaching into his back pocket with the same fluid grace he showed on the basketball court. Tommy and his friends tensed, unsure what to expect. What Michael pulled out wasn't a weapon or a wallet, it was a small white card. He held it out to Tommy with a smile that would soon become famous worldwide. The evening air seemed to hold its breath as Tommy hesitantly took the card. His eyes widened as he read what was printed on it. The color drained from his face so quickly that his friends stepped forward, concerned. One of them peered over Tommy's shoulder, and his jaw dropped open in shock. The gas station had grown so quiet that you could hear the buzz of the fluorescent lights overhead. The only other sound was the distant thump of car stereos on the main road and the continued bounce of that basketball from the nearby playground. It was as if the universe itself was waiting to see what would happen next. Tommy's hands trembled slightly as he held the card, his earlier bravado completely evaporated. His friends had backed away slightly, creating distance between themselves and their suddenly uncertain leader. The phone that had been recording earlier was quickly pocketed, its owner no longer interested in documenting this encounter. The other customers at the gas station had inched closer, curious about what could have caused such a dramatic change in the teenager's demeanor. The station attendant was now grinning broadly, clearly aware of exactly who was standing at pump number 3. He had already pulled out his own phone, though he was showing more respect by keeping it lowered. Michael's smile remained gentle, but there was a glint in his eye that suggested he was about to deliver a lesson these teenagers would never forget. The same competitive spirit that drove him to excellence on the basketball court was present here, but it was tempered with wisdom and understanding. He recognized this as an opportunity not to humiliate, but to educate. The summer evening had taken on a surreal quality, as if time itself had slowed down to fully appreciate the moment. The setting sun cast long shadows across the gas station forecourt, painting everything in shades of gold and purple. It was the kind of moment that would be remembered and retold, passed down through generations as a lesson about humility and respect. What happened next would become part of Chicago's urban legend, a story that would be shared in barbershops and basketball courts across the city. It would serve as a reminder that greatness doesn't always announce itself with flash and glamour, and that true character is revealed not in moments of victory, but in how we handle moments of confrontation and challenge. The business card in Tommy's trembling hands was simple but elegant, bearing the Chicago Bulls logo and the name Michael Jordan, along with his position as guard for the team. But it wasn't just the name that made Tommy's blood run cold, It was the growing realization that he had just spent the last few minutes mocking someone who was already becoming a legend in Chicago, someone whose posters were probably hanging on his own bedroom wall. The silence that had fallen over the gas station was broken by whispers of recognition spreading like wildfire among the onlookers. "That's Michael Jordan," someone murmured, and the words rippled through the crowd like a wave. Even those who weren't basketball fans could feel the shift in the atmosphere, the electric charge of being in the presence of greatness. Michael took a step forward, his presence somehow growing even more commanding. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm and measured, carrying the same quiet confidence he showed on the court. "You know, when I was growing up, my father taught me something important. He said it's not about what you drive or what you wear, it's about how you carry yourself and treat others." Tommy's friends had completely abandoned their earlier bravado, some even backing away toward their own vehicles. The phone that had been recording earlier was now being used to frantically text friends about who they had just encountered. The gas station attendant had moved closer, his earlier concern replaced by barely contained excitement. Michael continued, his words carrying across the now silent forecourt. "This Mercedes? It gets me where I need to go. Just like my old Chevrolet did in high school, and just like my first car in college. The difference is I earned every one of them. Can you say the same about that Corvette?" His eyes flickered briefly to the shiny new car Tommy had been so proud of moments ago. The teenager's face flushed red with shame, his eyes fixed on the ground. The Corvette that had been his source of pride now seemed to mock him from its parking spot, a symbol not of his success but of his arrogance. Some of the other customers nodded in approval at Michael's words, while others pulled out their phones, sensing that they were witnessing a moment worth capturing. "But you know what?" Michael's voice took on a thoughtful tone. "I'm actually glad this happened. Because now you have a choice to make. You can either learn from this moment, or you can let it be just another embarrassing memory. The question is, what are you going to do with this lesson?" A gentle evening breeze rustled through the gas station, carrying with it the distant sounds of city life. The security cameras continued their silent vigil, recording what would become a legendary encounter. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting their harsh glow on the scene below, where a future Hall of Famer was teaching a young man about more than just basketball. Tommy finally found his voice, though it came out barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry, Mr. Jordan. I didn't know." His words trailed off, inadequate in the face of his actions. His friends shifted uncomfortably behind him, their own guilt written clearly on their faces. Michael's response was unexpected. He laughed, not mockingly, but with genuine amusement. "You didn't know? That's exactly the point. You never know who someone is or what they're capable of just by looking at their car or their clothes. The guy you mock today might be your boss tomorrow, or might be someone whose autograph you'd wait hours in line for." The other customers at the gas station had formed a loose circle around the scene, drawn in by the wisdom being shared. Parents were nudging their children, making sure they were paying attention to this impromptu lesson in humility and respect. The gas station attendant had stopped pretending to work entirely, openly watching the exchange with a broad smile. Michael reached into his car and pulled out something that made Tommy's eyes widen even further, a basketball. It was well worn, the kind that showed hours of practice and dedication. He spun it on his finger with casual expertise, a small demonstration of the skill that was already making him famous. "You see this ball?" Michael asked, still spinning it effortlessly. "It's not the newest or the flashiest, but it's helped me put in thousands of hours of practice. It's helped me earn everything I have. The car you mocked? It's just a tool, just like this ball. What matters is what you do with what you have, not what other people think about it." The basketball continued to spin, hypnotic in its rotation, as Michael's words sank in. The evening had grown darker, but the gas station's fluorescent lights cast everything in sharp relief, highlighting the contrast between the teenager's expensive clothes and Michael's simple attire. The difference now seemed less about status and more about substance. Tommy's friends had begun to look at their own cars differently, seeing them not as status symbols but as reflections of their own misplaced priorities. The Corvette that had seemed so impressive earlier now stood as a testament to privilege rather than achievement. The lesson was hitting home for more than just Tommy. "Here's what I'm going to do," Michael said, finally catching the basketball and holding it out to Tommy. "I'm going to give you this ball. Not because you deserve it, but because I want you to remember this moment every time you look at it. I want you to remember that true respect isn't about what someone has, it's about who they are." Tommy reached out hesitantly, his hands still shaking slightly as he took the basketball. The leather was smooth from use, telling a story of countless hours of practice and dedication. This wasn't just a piece of sports equipment, it was a symbol of everything Michael had been trying to teach him. The other customers watched in amazement as Michael pulled a marker from his car and signed the ball, adding a personal message that only Tommy could see. The teenager's eyes welled up with tears as he read the words, clutching the ball like it was made of gold. His friends crowded around, their earlier mockery forgotten in the face of this unexpected act of kindness. Michael wasn't done yet. He reached into his wallet and pulled out several more business cards, handing them to Tommy's friends. "I want each of you to keep one of these. Not to brag about meeting me, but to remind you that everyone deserves respect, regardless of what they drive or wear. Because you never know, that person in the old car might just be working their way towards something great." The gas station had become eerily quiet again, but this time it was a different kind of silence. It was the silence of people witnessing something profound, something that transcended the usual boundaries of celebrity encounters. This wasn't just about meeting a basketball star, it was about learning a lesson that would last a lifetime. The security cameras continued their silent recording, capturing what would become a story passed down through generations in Chicago. The evening air had grown cooler, but nobody seemed eager to leave. They all sensed that they were witnessing something special, a moment when sport and life lessons intersected in the most unexpected of places. As Michael prepared to leave, he had one final message for Tommy and his friends. It was the kind of wisdom that would echo far beyond this gas station, reaching into the future where these teenagers would face their own choices about how to treat others. It was a message about character, about respect, and about the true measure of a person's worth. Michael's final words to the group would be forever etched in their memories. "Success isn't about showing off what you have," he said, his voice carrying the weight of someone who had already learned these lessons the hard way. "It's about staying humble enough to remember where you came from, and wise enough to know where you're going. That old Mercedes? It reminds me every day that I'm still climbing, still working, still hungry for more." The impact of his words resonated through the gas station, touching everyone who witnessed the encounter. The elderly man in the pickup truck nodded slowly, a knowing smile on his weathered face. The mother who had tried to shield her children earlier now encouraged them to listen, knowing they were witnessing a moment of rare wisdom. Even the gas station attendant had stopped taking pictures, caught up in the profound significance of what was unfolding. Tommy stood there, the signed basketball in his hands feeling heavier with each passing moment. It wasn't just the weight of the ball, it was the weight of the lesson he'd learned, the burden of his own arrogance finally lifting to reveal a clearer understanding of what truly matters in life. His friends had gathered closer, their earlier mockery replaced by genuine respect and attention. Michael reached out and placed a hand on Tommy's shoulder, his touch firm but gentle. "You know what's funny?" he said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "In a few years, this Mercedes might be worth more than that Corvette. Not because of what it is, but because of the story it tells. Every scratch, every dent, every mile, they're all part of my journey. And that's something money can't buy." The summer evening had deepened around them, the gas station's fluorescent lights creating a stage-like setting for this impromptu lesson in humility. The distant sound of traffic had faded away, as if the city itself was holding its breath, waiting to hear what other wisdom this young basketball player would share. "Let me tell you something about this car," Michael continued, running his hand along the Mercedes' faded hood. "When I first signed with the Bulls, people expected me to go out and buy something flashy. Something that screamed, 'I've made it.' But my father taught me better than that. He taught me that true success isn't about what you show others, it's about what you prove to yourself." The teenagers hung on every word, their own expensive cars forgotten in the face of this unexpected mentorship. The phone that had been recording earlier was now being used to take notes, its owner understanding that this was something worth remembering, worth sharing with others who might need to hear it. "You see," Michael went on, his voice taking on a teacher's tone. This car gets me to practice every morning. It gets me to games. It's reliable, it's humble, and it does its job without complaining. Kind of like how I try to approach my own career. Because at the end of the day, it's not about looking good, it's about being good. Being consistent. Being dependable. The gas station attendant, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke up. Mr. Jordan, I see you come through here regular. Always polite, always patient. Never would have known you were a pro player if someone hadn't told me. His words carried the weight of genuine observation, adding another layer to the lesson being taught. Michael smiled at this, appreciating the attendant's honesty. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Character isn't something you put on for special occasions. It's who you are when nobody's watching. Or when you think nobody important is watching. He gave Tommy a meaningful look at these last words. The impact of the evening's events was visible on Tommy's face. The teenager who had arrived full of mockery and false confidence now stood straighter, his expression thoughtful. The signed basketball in his hands had become more than just a souvenir. It was a tangible reminder of a lesson that would shape his future interactions with others. I want you all to do something for me, Michael said, addressing not just Tommy and his friends, but everyone who had gathered to witness this moment. The next time you're tempted to judge someone based on what they drive, or what they wear, or how they look, remember tonight. Remember that the guy in the beat-up car might be working harder than anyone you know. Remember that true success isn't about showing off, it's about showing up every day, ready to work. The evening air had grown cooler, but nobody moved to leave. They were all bound together by the understanding that they were witnessing something special, something that transcended the usual celebrity encounter. This was about more than basketball, more than cars, more than success. This was about fundamental human values. And Tommy, Michael added, his voice softening slightly, that Corvette your father bought you? There's nothing wrong with having nice things. The problem comes when we think those things make us better than others. Take care of that car, be grateful for it, but don't let it define you. Let your actions define you instead. The other customers at the gas station had started sharing their own stories in hushed voices. One man spoke about his first car, a handed-down Volkswagen that had taught him the value of maintenance and care. A woman recalled how her father had made her work through high school to earn her first vehicle, a lesson in responsibility she never forgot. Michael's presence had transformed the gas station into a place of learning, where wisdom was being passed not just from him to the teenagers, but between all who were present. The security cameras continued their silent vigil, recording what would become a legendary story in Chicago's rich tapestry of urban legends. Before I go, Michael said, reaching into his car one last time, I want to show you something. He pulled out a small photo album, the kind people carried before smartphones took over. Inside was a picture of his first car, a humble vehicle that made his Mercedes look luxurious by comparison. This is where I started. Every time I think about upgrading to something flashier, I look at this picture and remember, it's not about the car, it's about the journey. The teenagers gathered around to look at the photo, their expressions a mixture of surprise and understanding. The image of young Michael Jordan standing proudly beside his first car served as a powerful reminder that everyone starts somewhere, and that the path to success is paved with humility and hard work. As Michael prepared to leave, he had one final piece of advice. Success is a journey, not a destination. And along that journey, you'll meet all kinds of people. Some in fancy cars, some in old ones. Some in expensive clothes, some in worn-out ones. But if you want to know who's really successful, don't look at what they have, look at how they treat others. The gas station had fallen silent again as Michael got back into his Mercedes. The engine started with a reliable purr, a sound that now seemed to carry its own kind of dignity. Before he drove away, he rolled down his window and addressed the crowd one last time. Remember, he said, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who lived by his words, respect isn't about status. It's about recognizing the humanity in everyone you meet. Because you never know, that person you're looking down on today might just be tomorrow's Michael Jordan. With those words, he pulled away from the pump, his Mercedes disappearing into the Chicago night. But the impact of his visit would remain, rippling out through the lives of everyone who witnessed it. The gas station would never be just a gas station again. It had become a place where a valuable lesson was learned, where arrogance was transformed into understanding, and where a future legend showed that true greatness lies not in what you possess, but in how you treat others. For those wanting to learn more about humility and success, leave a comment below sharing your own story of a time when you learned not to judge a book by its cover. And don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories that remind us what truly matters in life.